Question number 201. You decide to buy a reserved instance for a term of 1 year. Which option provides the largest total discount? All upfront reservation or all reserved instant payment options provide the same discount level, partial upfront reservation or no upfront reservation. Correct option is option A, all upfront reservation. Next one. What features does AWS offer to help protect your data in the cloud? Choose two options: access control, physical MFA devices, data encryption, unlimited storage, or load balancing. Two correct options are access control and data encryption. So, access control and data encryption helps us protect our data in the cloud. All right. An AWS customer has used one Amazon Linux instance for 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 9 seconds, and the one CentOS instance for 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 7 seconds. How much time will the customer be billed for? 3 hours for the Linux instance and 5 hours for the CentOS instance. 2 hours 5 minutes and 9 seconds for the Linux instance and 4 hours 23 minutes and 7 seconds for CentOS instance, or 2 hours 5 minutes and 9 seconds for the Linux instance and 5 hours for the CentOS instance, or option D, 3 hours for the Linux instance and 4 hours 23 minutes and 7 seconds for the CentOS instance. So correct option is option C, 2 hours 5 minutes and 9 seconds for Linux instance. So the customer has used for 2 hours 5 minutes and 9 seconds for Linux instance. So that will be billed as it is. And for CentOS instance, customer has used 4 hours 23 minutes and 7 seconds. So customer will be billed for 5 hours for that CentOS instance. That's why option C is the correct option here. Moving on. What is the AWS support feature that allows customers to manage support cases programmatically? AWS Trusted Advisor, AWS Operations Support, AWS Support API, or AWS Personal Health Dashboard. Correct option is option C, AWS Support API. So that's the feature of AWS that allows customers to manage support cases programmatically. Next question. Which methods can be used by customers to interact with AWS Identity and Access Management, that is IAM? Choose two correct options: AWS CLI, AWS Security Groups, AWS SDKs, AWS Network Access Control Lists, or AWS Code Commit. Correct options are AWS CLI, AWS Command Line Interface, and AWS SDK, Software Development Kit. So, when you deal with identity and access management programmatically, you can not programmatically, but there are two methods that you can use to interact with IAM, that is AWS CLI and AWS SDKs. Which of the following are types of AWS identity and access management identities? AWS resource groups, IAM policies, IAM roles, IAM users, or AWS organizations. Correct options are C and D, IAM roles and IAM users. So these two are types of AWS identity and access management identities: IAM roles and IAM users. Moving on. Which of the following Amazon RDS features facilitates offloading of database read activity? Database snapshots, multi-AZ deployments, automated backups, or read replicas? Correct answer is read replicas, option D. So that feature is of Amazon RDS facilitates offloading of database read activities. That's called read replicas. Moving on, how does AWS notify customers about security and privacy events pertaining to AWS services? Using the AWS ACM service, using security bulletins, using the AWS Management Console, or using compliance resources. Correct option is option B, using security bulletins. Next question. Which IAM entity can best be used to grant temporary access to your AWS resources? IAM users, key pair, IAM roles, or IAM groups. So correct option is option C, IAM roles. So when you are trying to give the temporary access to AWS resources, you can use IAM roles to give the temporary access. A company has a web application that is hosted on a single EC2 instance and is approaching 100% CPU utilization during peak loads. Rather than scaling the server vertically, the company has decided to deploy three Amazon EC2 instances in parallel and to distribute traffic across the three servers. What AWS service should the company use to distribute the traffic evenly? AWS Global Accelerator, AWS Application Load Balancer, Amazon CloudFront, or Transit VPC. Correct option is AWS Application Load Balancer, ALB. Which of the following approaches will help you eliminate human error and automate the process of creating and updating your AWS environment? Use software test automation tools, or use AWS Code Deploy to build and automate your AWS environment. Use code to provision and operate your AWS infrastructure, or migrate all of your applications to the dedicated host. Correct option is option C. You can use code to provision and operate your AWS infrastructure. Next question. A company is seeking to better secure its AWS account from unauthorized access. Which of the below options can the customer use to achieve this goal? Restrict any API call made through SDKs or CLI. Create one IAM account for each department in the company, that is development, QA, production, and share it across all staff in that department. Require multi-factor authentication MFA for all IAM user access, or set up two login passwords. This is easy. Option C is the correct answer. We need multi-factor authentication for all IAM user access. Moving on. Which AWS service offers volume discounts based on usage? Amazon VPC or Amazon S3, Amazon Light Sale, or AWS Cost Explorer? Correct option is Amazon S3, option B. Amazon S3 service offers volume discounts based on the usage. Next question. Which of the following factors should be considered when determining the region in which AWS resources will be deployed? The AWS region security level, data authority, cost, the planned number of VPCs, or geographic proximity to the company's location. Two correct options are B and C, data authority and costs. All right. You are running a financial service web application on AWS. The application uses a MySQL database to store the data. Which of the following AWS services would improve the performance of your application by allowing you to retrieve information from fast in memory caches? Amazon EFS, Amazon Neptune, Amazon Elasticache, or DAX? Correct option is option C, Amazon Elasticache. Next question. What are the advantages of using auto scaling groups for EC2 instances. Autoscaling groups caches the most recent responses at global edge locations to reduce latency and improve performance. Autoscaling groups scales EC2 instances in a multiple availability zones to increase application availability and fault tolerance. Autoscaling group scales EC2 instances across multiple regions to reduce latency for global users, or autoscaling groups distributes application traffic across multiple availability zones to enhance performance. So, correct answer is option B. Autoscaling group scales EC2 instances in multiple AZs to increase application availability and fault tolerance. Alright. The TSO gap between AWS infrastructure and traditional infrastructure has widened over the recent years. Which of the following could be the reason for that? AWS helps customers invest more in capital expenditures. AWS automates all infrastructure operations, so customers save more on human resource costs. AWS continues to lower the cost of cloud computing for its customers, or AWS secures AWS resources at no additional charge. Correct option is option C. AWS continues to lower the cost of cloud computing for its customers by time by time. All right. Which of the following are examples of the customer's responsibility to implement security in the cloud? Building a schema for an application, replacing physical hardware, creating a new hypervisor, patch management of the underlying infrastructure, file system encryption. Option A, building a schema for an application, and option E, file system encryption. Both are customer's responsibility, not AWS responsibility. Moving on, which of the following is a type of MFA device that customers can use to protect their AWS resources? AWS Cloud HSM, U2F security key, AWS access keys, or AWS key pairs. Correct option is option B, U2F security key. Next question. A company is seeking to deploy an existing .NET application onto AWS as quickly as possible. Which AWS service should the customer use to achieve this goal? Amazon SNS, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, AWS Systems Manager, or AWS Trusted Advisor. Correct option is option B, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Which of the following is not a factor when estimating the costs of Amazon EC2? Choose two correct options. The amount of time the instances will be running, number of security groups, allocated elastic IP addresses, number of hosted zones, or number of instances. Two correct options are option B and D. So, number of security groups and number of hosted zones are not the part or are not the reason or factor when we estimate the cost of Amazon EC2. Next question. Which AWS service helps enterprises extend their on-premises storage to AWS in a cost-effective manner? AWS Data Pipeline, AWS Storage Gateway, Amazon Aurora, Amazon EFS. Option B, AWS Storage Gateway is the correct option. Next question. A company is building an online cloud storage platform. They need a storage service that can scale capacity automatically while minimizing cost. Which AWS storage service should the company use to meet these requirements? Amazon Simple Storage Service, Amazon Elastic Block Store, Amazon Elastic Container Service, or AWS Storage Gateway. Correct option is option A, Amazon S3. Moving on, you have just hired a skilled system admin to join your team. As usual, you have created a new IAM user for him to interact with AWS services. On his first day, you ask him to create snapshots of all existing Amazon EBS volumes and save them in a new Amazon S3 bucket. However, the new member reports back that he is unable to create neither EBS snapshots nor S3 buckets. What might prevent him from doing this simple task? Option A, EBS and S3 are accessible only to the root account owner. The system's administrator must contact AWS support first to activate his new IAM account. There is not enough space in S3 to store the snapshots, or there is a non-explicit deny to all new users. Correct option is option D. By default, new users cannot access those services. That's why option D is the correct option. There is a no non-explicit deny to all new users. Moving on, an external auditor is requesting a log of all accesses to the new resources in the company's account. Which of the following services will provide the auditor with the requested information? AWS CloudTrail or Amazon CloudFront or AWS CloudFormation or option D Amazon CloudWatch. Correct option is option A AWS CloudTrail. So when you see the word auditor or log file, almost all the time, right answer is Amazon AWS CloudTrail. Moving on, which of the below options is true of Amazon Cloud Directory? Amazon Cloud Directory allows the organization of hierarchies of data across multiple dimensions. Amazon Cloud Directory enables the analysis of video and data streams in real time. Amazon Cloud Directory allows users to access AWS with their existing Active Directory credentials, or Amazon Cloud Directory allows for registration and management of domain names. Correct option is option A. Amazon Cloud Directory allows the organization of hierarchies of data across multiple dimensions. Next question. A user has opened a production system down support case to get help from AWS support after a production system disruption. What is the expected response time for this type of support case? 12 hours, 15 minutes, 24 hours, or 1 hour? Correct option is option D 1 hour, because the use case is production system down, and that's why 1 hour is the expected response time from the support. Moving on, which of the below options is the best practice for making your application on AWS highly available? Deploy the application code on at least two servers in the same ASIS. Use elastic load balancing across multiple AWS regions. Deploy the application to at least two ASIS. Rewrite the application code to handle all incoming requests. Correct option is option C. You need to deploy your application to at least two availability zones, so that it is called a best practice for making your application on AWS highly available. All right. Which of the following should be taken into account when performing a TCO analysis regarding the cost on running an application on AWS versus on premises? Labor and IT costs, cooling and power consumption, Amazon EBS computing power, software architecture, or software compatibility. Correct options are option A and B, labor and IT costs, as well as cooling and power consumption. Those are the two things that you need to consider when you are analyzing the cost your application to be running on AWS versus on premises. Next question. Your company requires a response time of less than 15 minutes from support interactions about their business critical systems that are hosted on AWS. If those systems go down, which AWS support plan should this company use? AWS Basic Support, AWS Developer Support, AWS Business Support, or AWS Enterprise Support? The correct answer is AWS Enterprise Support, option D, because we need a response time of less than 15 minutes. So that's why we need to choose AWS Enterprise Support. Next question. Which of the following AWS offerings are serverless services? Amazon EC2, AWS Lambda, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon EMR, or Amazon RDS? Option B and C are right options. So when you have question regarding serverless services, Amazon DynamoDB and AWS Lambda both are right answers. Moving on. Which AWS services provides integration with Chef to automate the configuration of EC2 instances? AWS Config, AWS OpsWorks, Autoscaling, or AWS Cloud Formation? Correct option is option B, AWS OpsWorks. A customer is seeking to store objects in their AWS environment and to make those objects downloadable over the internet. Which AWS service can be used to accomplish this? Amazon EBS, Amazon EFS, Amazon S3, or Amazon Instance Store? Correct option is option C, Amazon S3. So when you have question regarding storing objects and downloadable over the internet, only one service is suitable for that, that is Amazon S3. All right. Which of the following services can be used to monitor the HTTP and HTTPS requests that are forwarded to Amazon CloudFront? AWS WF, Amazon CloudWatch, AWS Cloud9, or AWS Cloud Trail? Correct option is option B, Amazon CloudWatch. A company is migrating a web application to AWS. The application's compute capacity is utilized throughout the year. Which of the below options offers the company the most cost effective solution? On demand instances, dedicated hosts, spot instances, or reserved instances? Correct option is option D, reserved instances, because your company needs that instance over the year, at least for a year. That's why reserved instances is a best solution here. Moving on, a company wants to grant a new employee long-term access to manage Amazon DynamoDB databases. Which of the following is recommended best practice when granting these permissions? Create an IAM role and establish a policy with Amazon DynamoDB access permissions, or create an IAM role and attach a policy with administrator access permissions, or create an IAM user and attach a policy with Amazon DynamoDB access permissions, or option D, create an IAM user and attach a policy with administrator access permissions. So correct option is option C. You need to create an IAM user and you should attach a policy with Amazon DynamoDB access permission to that user. All right. When granting permissions to applications running on Amazon EC2 instances, which of the following is considered best practice? Generate new IAM access keys every time you delegate permissions. Store the required AWS credentials directly within the application code. Use temporary security credentials instead of long term access keys. Do nothing. Applications that run on Amazon EC2 instances do not need permission to interact with other AWS resources and services. Correct option is option C. You can use temporary security credentials that is called IAM roles instead of long-term access keys. Okay. Which of the following will help AWS customers save on costs when migrating their workloads to AWS? So this is cost saving. Use servers instead of managed services. Use existing third party software licenses on AWS. Migrate production workloads to AWS edge locations instead of AWS regions. Or use AWS outposts to run all workloads in a cost optimized environment. Correct option is option B. You need to use existing third party software licenses on AWS. That will save your lot of money. An organization has a legacy application designed using monolithic based architecture. Which AWS service can be used to decouple the components of the application? Amazon SQS, Virtual Private Gateway, AWS Artifact, or Amazon CloudFront. Correct option is option A, Amazon SQS, Simple Queue Services. Moving on. Which of the following can be used to enable the virtual multi-factor authentication? Amazon Connect or AWS CLI, AWS Identity and Access Management IAM, Amazon SNS, or Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. Correct options are option B, AWS CLI, and option C, AWS Identity and Access Management IAM. According to best practices, which of the below options is best suited for processing a large number of binary files? Vertically scaling EC2 instances or running RDS instances in parallel, vertically scaling RDS instances or running EC2 instances in parallel. Correct option is option D. You can run multiple EC2 instances in parallel. Moving on. A company is planning to use Amazon S3 and Amazon CloudFront to distribute its video courses globally. What tool can the company use to estimate the cost of these services? AWS Cost Explorer, AWS Pricing Calculator, AWS Budgets, or AWS Cost and Usage Report. Here, correct option is AWS Pricing Calculator, that is used to estimate the cost of the services. Moving on, what should you do if you see resources which you don't remember creating in the AWS Management Console? Stop all running services and open an investigation. Give your root account password to AWS support so that they can assist in troubleshooting and securing the account. Check the AWS CloudTrail logs and delete all IAM users that have access to your resources. Open an investigation and delete any potentially compromised IAM users, or change your AWS root account password and the passwords of any IAM users. So correct options are option D and E. You need to open an investigation and also delete all compromised IAM users, as well as you need to change the root account password and others IAM users passwords as well. All right. A key practice when designing solutions on AWS is to minimize dependencies between components so that one failure of a single component does not impact other components. What is this approach or practice called? Elastic coupling, loosely coupling, scalable coupling, or tightly coupling? Option B, loosely coupling, is the right answer. Moving on, which AWS service offers an NFS file system that can be mounted concurrently from multiple EC2 instances? Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon Simple Storage Service, Amazon Elastic Block Store, or AWS Storage Gateway. Correct option is Amazon Elastic File System. Option A. Availability zones within a region are connected over low latency links. Which of the following is the benefit of these links? Create private connection to your data center, achieve global high availability, automate the process of provisioning new compute resources, or make synchronous replication of your data possible. Correct option is option D. It will make synchronous replication of your data possible. So when you create multiple availability zones, so in a region, and those are connected in overall low latency links, that is beneficial for making synchronous replication of your data. Moving on, which of the following are true regarding the languages that are supported on AWS Lambda? Lambda only supports Python and Node.js, but third-party plugins are available to convert code in other languages to these formats. Lambda natively supports a number of programming languages such as Node.js, Python, and Java. Lambda is AWS programming language for microservices. Lambda doesn't support programming languages. It is a serverless compute service. Lambda can support any programming language using an API. Two correct options are option B. Lambda natively supports a number of programming languages, popular programming languages such as Node.js, Java, and Python. And also, Lambda can support any programming language using an API. Alright. What are the capabilities of AWS X-Ray? Automatically decouples application components, facilitates tracking of user requests to identify application issues, helps improve application performance, deploys applications to Amazon EC2 instances, or deploys applications to on-premises servers. Correct option is B. Facilitates tracking of user requests to identify application issues, X-ray. And option C, helps improve application performance. So X-ray service can be used for both the reasons. Which of the following is true regarding the AWS availability zones and edge locations? Edge locations are located in separate availability zones worldwide to serve global customers. An availability zone exists within an edge location to distribute content globally with low latency. An availability zone is a geographical location where AWS provides multiple physically separated and isolated large locations, edge locations. An AWS availability zone is an isolated location within an AWS region. However, edge locations are located in multiple cities worldwide. Correct option is option D. An AWS availability zone is an isolated location within an AWS region, and those edge locations are located in multiple cities worldwide. Alright. Which features are included in the AWS Business Support Plan? 24 by 7 access to service, customer service, access to cloud support engineers via email only during business hours, access to the infrastructure event management, that is IEM feature for additional fee, 24 by 7 access to the TAM feature, partial access to the core trusted advisor checks. Two correct options are A, 24/7 access to customer service, and access to the infrastructure event management feature for additional fee.